for 20 months, Reportedly adopted a grassroots approach to telling stories by sourcing from social media to get perspectives from people on the ground. But in August, Reportedly said goodbye after its parent company, First Look Media, pulled its funding. We spoke with Reportedly editor Andy Carvin about what the team learned along the way. A key part of Reportedly's strategy was developing relationships with first-person sources around the world to confirm breaking news and help make sense of the issues. Carvin says having these sources helped his team develop a deeper understanding of the stories, and in many cases they even provided translation and helped verify details.
I don't think most people would do that for the typical, news institution. I think by having those, a more open relationship with the public actually allows us to cover stories in ways that add more value to them.
Once the team reported the story, they worked to build and maintain relationships with their sources on the ground from thousands of miles away.
We try to develop a rapport with people, and there's often a word of mouth where people say, wait, what's this reportedly thing? And someone will say, oh, don't worry, they're okay. They'll take us seriously.
Part of building rapport for Reportedly meant a responsibility to the people and places involved in breaking news situations. Empathy and transparency were key to the operation.
I think by being humble and transparent in the way we cover what's happening in their countries, we don't presume anything about their cultures. We don't pretend we're parachuting in. I think by trying to display an inherent respect to their circumstances and even acknowledging we don't fully understand it, I think helps develop that rapport and often leads to people coming back to us and saying, I don't know if you've seen this yet, but another bomb just went off, or there's a hostage situation in this hotel. And that plays out again and again and again, one country after another.
Carvin put a lot of care into choosing his team to reflect the right tone and journalistic mission he wanted for Reportedly.
So I tried to find people who had demonstrated that type of humility and a certain intimacy in their work and sort of an inherent respect for the public, not just as yet another audience. It's a hell of a lot easier if you can just focus on identifying people who seem to share similar values and approach it with an eye towards diversity, because especially with the kind of news we're doing, I knew I was going to desperately need linguistic expertise, cultural expertise. I purposely hired people whose families came from refugee backgrounds. It added not only a broader cultural dynamic, but also added layers of empathy that I think might not exist if I had just gone on and hired the first group of people with the best resumes out there.
Looking back, Carvin says Reportedly's biggest mistake was not remaining narrowly focused. For example, Carvin says they decided to begin hosting their content on a website instead of only delivering stories via social media.
Then we suddenly realized we had what was essentially a daily news site that needed content. And there was just no way we could feed the beast in a way to do it justice. So we found ourselves either neglecting the website or putting together stories for the website so people wouldn't think it was completely static. But when we do that, our social reporting suffered. So it's like another example of us biting off more than we could chew. And in retrospect, I think it would have been better for us to have been more radical about it and spent the first year with no website whatsoever.
Having a small, tight-knit team was beneficial in many ways, Carvin says, but it also made for a few challenges. Managing the heavy workload and the emotional demands were especially difficult.
We worked ourselves to a state of exhaustion. You can't be focused on Syria 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year, or whatever it is. There are certain times where you just say, okay, let me go work on something else. And we didn't have the luxury of that. I think in many ways that was probably the biggest lesson that came out of it.
The future of Reportedly is still uncertain. Carvin says for now he's trying to work with the parent company to see if he can take ownership of Reportedly to carry it on somewhere else. For the Futures Lab, this is Katie Gurnick.